Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. My guest on the podcast today is Stephen Carver. He's a senior lecturer, consultant, and speaker in change and crisis management at Cranfield University School of Management. Now, a bit of background on that first. Cranfield School of Management is one of the oldest business schools in Europe. As part of Cranfield University, the UK's only wholly postgraduate university, they are uniquely placed to connect technology and leadership. Their contribution to global innovation is world-leading, changing the way society thinks, works, and learns. They are an integral part of the history and vital for the future. Management and leadership itself has been part of Cranfield University since the 50s. The university was founded on an old RAF site as the first postgraduate college in aeronautics. The School of Management grew out of industrial need and management training and formally established in 1967. Now back to Stephen. I first met Stephen at the ACSC conference, the summer conference, in 2024, and Stephen is rated as one of the top 3 lecturers at one of Europe's top MBA Business Schools. He has a reputation of taking complex management concepts such as projects, programs, and crisis management and being able to distill them into highly informative and fun lectures, often using storytelling techniques. His attitude is, if you haven't done it, you shouldn't teach it. He's lectured to the British Armed Forces, pro bono, for the last 20 years. And he's also lectured at almost every UK military base, including Shrivenham, Hereford, Conningsby, Devonport, Cosford, Uxbridge, Faslane, Falklands, Germany, Erbil and Valley. He recently shared a lively stage debate with Charles Haddon Cave at Shrivenham discussing ethical leadership. Unusually for an academic, he has actually spent most of his working life in real business. He started as an engineer in an offshore oil business and then worked his way up to a corporate ladder at Virgin and then Halliburton, reporting directly to the CEO. He still runs his own highly successful project management company, working with organisations from banks to law firms to manufacturing and pharma. Stephen is an unusual blend of academic, business and teller of tales. He has taught in almost every country in the world and has appeared on national radio and TV. Today, as part of our conversation, we're going to be speaking about change management and the complexity of change. Now, famously, Bill Clinton once said, the price of doing the same old thing is far higher than the price of change. Now, your success in life isn't based on your ability to simply change, it's based on your ability to change faster than your competition, customer, and businesses, and to do so in a way that takes people with you. There is a lot of change happening in the emergency services sector, in the public sector, and certainly in the fire and rescue services across the UK and perhaps globally. Now, we can all fall into that old habit of looking at the fire and rescue service as something incredibly rigid, steeped in tradition, and with a severe lack of neuroplasticity. But if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. That was Maya Angelou. And we are in a very unique position currently in the UK Fire and Rescue Service, where we are reaching that tipping point of that 30 to 35 year cycle where a lot of people are retiring. And much like academia and science, often change happens at the rate of funerals and or retirements. Because as the old guards step out, the new ones step in. We have a lot of recruitment and a lot of promotion and a lot of people from direct entry, as we spoke about on a recent episode. So our opportunity for sustainable, long-term, positive change is right now. The best time to plant a tree was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. So just because you think something's been tried before, done before, attempted before, and failed, doesn't mean it's never going to work. No right now doesn't mean no forever. And we're at a very unique time where I believe a message that's going to be shared by Stephen Carver today and the way in which he articulates it is particularly pertinent, relevant, and hopefully impactful for where we are right now. So I'll not take up any more of your time, just to say that it is my extreme pleasure to introduce today's guest, Stephen Carver. I'll see you on the other side. Concur on both parts, mate.
Good.
You're the consummate professional. And you're also very well dressed for the occasion for such an early time in the morning. Are you wearing any pants?
No.
Or is it just the top? You're not wearing any pants.
That's it, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, from the waist up, it's pleasing for me, my good. So the only difference, I suppose, today from presenting on stage and things like that, and again, I know you've done podcasts before, is I'll obviously interject with my own sort of thoughts and feelings and analogies and waffle. And
Please do. Don't let me monologue. I'm a lecturer.
Mate, I love a lecturer. Academics are my favourites to have on, to be honest, for 2 reasons. One, they help us romantics actually put some clout and some data behind our whimsical, visceral feelings, if you will.
Yeah.
And also, they tend to be very good speakers, but not all. And actually, you'll probably know this better than me. Mm-hmm. Like, academics have a wonderful story to tell, but most can't tell it.
Yes.
because they're only used to speaking to other academics.
That's
I
exactly.
say the same when they write papers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
paper writing.
you've written a paper for an academic.
Yeah.
You wrote it about the police or the fire service or fast-moving consumer goods companies, but they can't use it because it doesn't mean anything to them. They'll forward it round their colleagues and go, Stephen, we've had this from Lancashire University. Have a good read of it. It's fantastic. And you'll go, oh, that's fucking great, Pete. I'm not sure what to do with that because it's written in language I don't understand, and I'm not sure what the takeaway is supposed to be. Yeah. So one of my favourite things about you was it was just so incredibly relatable what you delivered at the AFSA conference. So effectively, some of it will be a plug and play from there. But I always like when we do ours, it's a rolling start. So there'll be no, Stephen, welcome to everyone knows you're happy to be here. You wouldn't be on the bloody podcast if you didn't want to be here. So don't worry about saying who you are and all that waffle. I always say, I've already read your CV. People know who you are.
Of course. Now, the most important thing is, seeing as we've got 2 minutes before scheduled time, I need to go and get a cup of tea.
Go and get a good coffee, my good man. It's not live, so I've got the old cafetiere on the hard caffeine.
Wow,
You go and do that. Have a wee-wee, and I will see you in a moment. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Right, Pete, drugs have been procured.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
I always think that's a great thing to frame in for like things in society as well. Because I'm a recovering addict. And when you talk about stuff like that, people talk about drugs. And I say, well, what drugs do you take? It's kind of a provocative, emotive question. And people are like, oh, I don't take any drugs. Well, you don't take caffeine. You don't have nicotine. You don't drink alcohol.
Aspirin.
And I'm like, our relationship with drugs is a very fascinating one, isn't it?
It is, yes. And in fact, there is an argument that, of course, alcohol is a necessary requirement to actually maintain civilization.
Well, it's embedded as our social drug, isn't it? It's the one that we've societally accepted. And it's ingrained and woven into everything that we do. It's the social lubricant of our life. It's a very strange one.
I used to work in Russia a lot. And out there, unless you get blitzed with them, they don't trust you. Because as one guy said, unless we see you as a fool, we cannot take you seriously. Which I thought was...
Oh, my God.
Which I thought was
I love that.
Yeah, I thought it was superb.
I say it in the fire service, I'm like, the things we do are sincere, but they don't always have to be serious.
No.
Because you can fatigue on that. And I imagine maybe you have that in an academic capacity sometimes. It's like, Jesus, guys, can we just, for a second, join me with a bit of brevity and a bit of levity? Come on.
I used to work offshore on the platforms. That was my job originally. I was an engineer. And the stress offshore is phenomenal. Not only safety, but also money. So you've got the two conflicting the whole time. And I remember once we had a platform and we'd lost main power because we'd lost gas. The diesel generators didn't kick in because there was a fault. So we were down to batteries, which means you've got 24 hours before you have to abandon the platform. And that's heavy poo because you effectively give it back to the government and you have to reapply to take your platform back. So the mayor had hit the fan. I was in charge of electrics, and the answer was just get us some electricity somewhere. It's like, how? We're in the middle of the North Sea, everything's broken. And I've never laughed so much in my life, but that's just a way of relieving the tension. If we hadn't have laughed, you would have just cracked up. So you just get on with it.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. I always say, like, all pressure is self-imposed as well.
Yes.
It's only how important you make the thing. It's like, oh, Stephen's putting a lot of pressure on me. No, you mean... Stephen's opinion of you means so much to you that you're allowing this pressure. Do you know what I mean? And I say this with the fire service. There was a great... people get so woven into the thing that they do, and they have that so much of their identity. And have you ever read The Regrets of the Dying? It's by a palliative care nurse. Oh, mate, you'll love it. It's a great book. And I was listening to...
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Palliative care nurse. And, you should read it. Honestly, it's very, very good. And there's a podcast by a guy called Dr. Ranjan Chatterjee. I always forget the name of his podcast, but he was on with a gentleman called Mo Gaudat, who's also a doctor. And they were speaking about this book and reflecting on some of the elements of it. And one of them was one of the things that people say, I wish I hadn't have worked too hard. And the two is the poignant bit in that sentence, because working hard, as you will have done many times, is like you're very passionate, you love what you do, you're very interested in it, you've got a real sort of joie de vivre about it. But working too hard is because you need it. And the doctor said this, he was like, Stephen and his wife are pregnant and they're due any day, or, Susan's got cancer and blah, 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 blah. They need me. And a lot of them don't use all their annual leave. And a lot of people in the emergency services don't use all their annual leave. I've got a colossal amount of annual leave left for this year, and it's bloody August. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Because you think, what will the crew do if I don't turn up to the fire station tomorrow? You know what, Pete? They'll be absolutely fine.
Yes, they will.
If you explode tomorrow, everything, not because they're horrible, not because they're bitter. And Mo said this on the podcast there. He was like, I thought my patients needed me. They didn't. They needed a medical professional.
Yeah.
But the real truth is I needed them. And working too hard is something, as an addict, like you cross-addict to things, and work and business is a very easy crossover for me, because the metric's nice, isn't it? The money or the listenership or the whatever, I can measure it. But working too hard, the only people that will remember that you went in on the weekends and worked late every night is your family and your children.
Yeah.
No one else, they're not going to stand outside the university and clap for you, Stephen. They might do it when you retire, but they're not. But some of us... Yeah, some of us build temples and statues and name wings of hospitals after ourselves. But it's a very, very, the regrets of the dying, certainly a good thing to look at, because, again, echoing back, which is where the origin of this thought came from, being on the oil rig, everything is millions. I used to work in fast-moving consumer goods time, and every minute was around... this is what the end of line, this is what, the wastage, this is what this is. And we were making something like 3,000 tins of dog food every minute on this particular line. And every second counted.
Of course.
And we would measure it. And you'll have been in all of these places. This is where
we measured it by the second, $1,000 a second. Yeah.
This is $1,000 a second. There you go. This is why what you said at the AFSA really spoke to me, because I was like, oh, he's one of them. Because I did all the Six Sigma, Kaizen, marginal gains, Dave Brailsford, complex problem solving, and we do amateur dramatics and all this sort of stuff to do problem solving with teams. You get parachuted into different factories. Parachuted makes it sound a bit militaristic, but we were dropped into teams in different factories to help efficiencies on the line. So whether it's a behavioral thing in a team, whether it's a shadow boards here or whatever there, it was all about change and efficiency and progress. And I forget what TRS is what the French called it. That was how they measured the efficiency on the line. I forget what TRS stands for. I don't know if the word means it's acronyms. We love bloody three TRLs, 3-letter acronyms in the service. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Buzzword bingo. Anyway, shall we crack on with the purpose of our conversation for today?
No, it's good. I'm learning a lot about you and the way your mind works.
Oh, mate, I love it. This is what my biggest frustration is, honestly, with the emergency services. There's no return on investment. There is and there isn't. We save people. Yes, and I'm not saying that facetiously or condescendingly, but there's a lot of dead wood in the emergency services because there's no real metric. You're not making a product. You're not really doing anything. Yes, you do community safety things, and yes, you attend incidents and make sure you get there within 10 minutes. We have metrics that the government hold us to, but you can be a 40%er in the fire and rescue service all of your life.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get that in bit. You can't do that.
No.
Other people can. I mean, you may find some people like that in academics. I don't know, that create a niche for themselves and build their walled garden, and I don't know. There's maybe a little bit of that going on as well, but. When you speak about the oil rigs and stuff like that, get shit done, Stephen.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. Why was it down for so long? I've got a box here that's this big for one word. Yeah. I don't need the story. All I can fit in here is it was down because I need a name or I need a thing. Okay. That's what I need. And it's, I love that element of meritocracy.
Oh, please. This is the best industry I ever worked in for that reason. And going back to what you said, my boss, not offshore, but in the London office, died in his office, and he was carted off to hospital. We all thought, heart attack, he'll survive. He died on the way. And within 30 minutes, someone was sitting in his chair doing his job. And I thought, welcome to the oil business. Yes.
Oh, how cold, how horrible. No,
So,
the thing is bigger than you.
yeah, you've got 1,000 people working on the project. You can't take 2 days off. And
millions of people waiting for the energy and the whatever that you're producing, the oil. Do you know what I mean? You've got to think beyond yourself. The thing is bigger than you, but you're also far more than the thing you do.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's where retirement for people in the emergency service is very difficult, because we sow our identity so deeply into the thing that we do.
Yep.
There was another great one, and we won't echo on this for too long, but have you heard the styrofoam cup story?
No.
Oh, God, I've got some rubbish to tell you today. Styrofoam cup story. It's actually a Simon Sinek piece. I stole it from him.
Oh, yeah.
So a general goes to give a speech at some massive conference, and he's talking about leadership. And he goes there, and he gets picked up from the airport. Limousine drives him there. Private security takes him in, gets taken to a private room, and he asks if there's any coffee. And a lovely waitress comes out with a china cup and brings him his tea, and there's lovely little sauces of this and croissants and everything like that. And he goes out and gives his speech and gets back in his limousine, goes back to the private plane, and off he flies back to his military base. He retires 2 years later and is invited back to a speaker at the conference to consult on leadership, and because they thought he was very good the first time. So he gets his invite, and he flies coach, and he gets an Uber from the airport, and he has to wait in line to get in. And then when he finally gets in, he asks the person where backstage is, and he has to sort of shuffle around the curtains and stuff like that, asks if there's any coffee, and he's pointed to a tea urn, and he makes himself a cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup. And then he waits in line for his turn to speak. And then when it's time to speak, he gets up off his little plastic chair that he's been very uncomfortable in for the last few hours, walks out onto stage and gives his talk, and he's holding the styrofoam cup. And in that moment, he realizes the china cup wasn't for me. The china cup was for my position.
Yeah.
I and we and everyone only ever deserves a styrofoam cup.
Yep.
Because that's who we are.
Yeah,
and that's what I love so much about you. And I like to egotistically think about myself. Like, I'm more than just the thing I do. I try and think about that Venn diagram of what you're very good at. So I'm like, Stephen is an academic, but he also is a great speaker, and he's happy to stand in front of people, and he's happy to be on camera. So actually, his sweet spot in those overlapping circles is right there. Is he the best academic in the world? Probably not.
No.
Is he the best speaker in the world? Probably not. But when you overlap the both of those, that is his sweet spot, because he's the top 10% of both of those, but he's never going to be number one. But in this moment here, that is what you've got to double down on. And for me, it was speaking and articulating myself, humility and ego, and willingness to engage, and through my addiction, going through loads of deep conversations with people. I'm like, I really like this. Now, I'm not going to be the best podcaster in the world. I'm not going to be the best speaker, and I'm also not the best firefighter. But I love people, and I'm very interested, and I'm an ADHD mind, and I'm very gregarious and all that sort of jazz. I'm like, do that. Try and do more of that, maybe. But anyway, that's what I think. Like, most people get stuck in the thing that they do, and I'm like, no, you're more than just the thing you do.
And that's why you do this podcast. That's why we're doing this morning.
Exactly. This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. So we're talking there about a person's change, perhaps, and maybe I can segue us, fumble our way into the next one. Change, ironically, is the only constant, isn't it? There's a great, one of my favourite images. Have you seen the image of the butterfly and the caterpillar having tea together?
No.
Oh, you got to steal this for your presentation. And the caterpillar says to the butterfly, "You've changed," and the butterfly says, "We're supposed to."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and also, what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the butterfly calls the beginning, don't they?
Right.
So, you go round the world speaking on change management and the complexity of change. You also lecture on it, as people will have heard in the introduction. Take us, you used to give a great talk when you were at AFSA, and I know we're going to segue in and out of that today. Why is change, A, so fearful for people, And B, why is it necessary for us to grab the steering wheel of change and really engage with it in terms of managing the complexity of it?
Okay. Well, at your conference, one of your colleagues gave me a great quote, which is, the thing you've got to understand about the blue light industry, if you want to call it that, is that everyone hates change and everyone hates the way things are around here.
Yes.
And I thought it was beautiful. And that's how most people are in most organizations, myself included. I may teach change, but I still find it hard. Change is stress. And most people are stressed out of their tiny brains nowadays, just trying to get through the day, get through their personal lives, get through their working day. And then someone comes along and says, oh, and we're going to change it all. And the terror, and therefore the anger is phenomenal. And I've learned to let it pass through me, because whenever I suggest that we ought to change something, normally there's just a huge emotional backlash.
Because some people like change for the sake of change, don't they? You see this a lot with the turnover of presidency or political bodies, or even people. I think someone gave me an example of energy to talk about your oil refinery again for a moment, not yours, but where you worked. And someone said, "Oh, I think we've solved the energy crisis. It's nuclear power." And I said, "Oh, okay." And they said, "Well, people have lived on nuclear subs for 50 years with sustainable energy, but the problem is, A, it's extraordinarily expensive to start with."
Yeah.
But after 10 years, it's free. But also we have lots of connotations of fear because of large disasters that actually didn't kill a lot of people. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be a learned person on this, so please feel free to correct me. But it would be a massive change, and it's a long-term change. They say true leadership is planting trees under which you'll never sit. And really long-term sustainable changes require that conviction to say, I might not see the benefit of this, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. And no one disputes the benefits of change. They all want the benefits. It's just getting there. It's the change itself. So they can all dream of sunny upwards. It's all going to be fantastic. But the actual pain of, it starts today. Most people don't want that. At the talk, as you know, I used this analogy of flight. Do you remember that one? And I said,
yes, sir.
Last time you flew, you didn't want the flight. What you wanted was the destination. And that's what it's all about with change. No one wants the damn change project. It's nothing but a pain in the backside. What they want is the benefits. And if they could just go to
Do you not think some people love the change, though?
Now,
I think there's the odd ones that love it. Some live in chaos, don't they? Because, climbing mountains, the Kubler-Ross curve and things like that, some people like to live in that chaos. They say it's not the mountain you conquer, but yourself, because some people like the journey.
Yes,
when you eventually reach the thing, I'm a terrible one for it. I build something nice, and then I smash it to bits like Lego bricks, and then go, now I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to change again. I think you can get a lot of change exhaustion, can't you? Change fatigue is what I think we're struggling with that so much today. And
you're absolutely right. You have to think about the person you're dealing with. I was saying people. We're on the distribution curve, diversity, all those good things. And Mother Nature wires us that way. Someone like you're a disruptor, and that's fine. That's what you like doing. And that's why you ended up in the blue light industry, because, you like reaction and making things happen, and reacting to things. And that's cool. Other people, that will be hell. You could imagine some people waiting for the phone to ring and there's a disaster at the end. That to them is hell. That to you is happiness. So we've got to always remember that we are on a spectrum, and I'm just talking about the majority in the middle. But on the end, there's some people who are completely anti all change, and there's other people who just want to disrupt.
Well, they're the late adopters, aren't they? The people that have still got turning telephones and all that sort of stuff. Someone's going to buy the brand new iPhone, even though it doesn't work, or the brand new whatever. The people that have just got virtual reality, it's not quite there yet. I've got 2 electric vehicles. I'm constantly annoyed about the mileage on them, but I wanted one. That's just me being stupid.
Yeah. And again, probably like you, I'm an early adopter, so that makes my job a little bit easier. But I do sympathise with people at the other end of the spectrum, because I am hell. I do a lot of lecturing for the Cabinet Office, civil service people, very senior, and a lot of them get it, but some of them, they join the civil service to avoid change, and so I am just anathema. I'm the prince of darkness when I walk into the lecture theatre, and I acknowledge it. I just laugh and say, you're going to hate me.
Some of the things when you speak to people about change, because obviously, like you say, the collective of an organisation will want to be consulted on change. And Stephen, give us some ideas, give us some models, perhaps some motivation, inspire us, give us some examples of success. But it is almost the way you deliver it. And I keep interrupting you. I'm going to stop because I know the listener is screaming at this, saying, "Pete, shut up! Let the guest talk." But it's like it's very emotive, isn't it? And you deliver it with such a charismatic but slightly provocative manner in the way that it's so uncomfortable for some people, and you can see people in the room, some of their toes are curling, some their eyes are widening. Yep. It's a very interesting, isn't it?
It is. And and that's the joy. Like you, I love dealing with people, and I never want to damage them or just them in any way, but it's just jollying these people along, all these different ideas about what the change should be and getting them to somewhere. And if you do it well, afterwards they say, "And who are you?" Because in the end it becomes their change, and that's really what you want. So one has to be careful with the charisma sometimes. One has to turn it down and try and make sure that in the end the people who went through the change own the change. Otherwise you have a problem. Because as a project manager, like a pilot, at the end, you walk away.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? And I had that when I was, saying, my old company. It would be about getting in there, building rapport, finding the cultural architects and getting them on board. Because otherwise, it changes. It's just you, when you're there, actually, you're just a really fantastic individual contributor. You're not embodying change and making it their story, championing them to do it. But you also said, and it's something we'll have read already in your bio, if you haven't done it, you shouldn't teach it, is a very interesting one. And people will probably have this because you've done a lot of lecturing for the British Armed Forces and obviously for the first responder community. And there is that easy ignorance for people where they go, well, like you just said yourself, who the hell are you, Stephen? Who are you to tell me? You know nothing about the challenges I face every day.
Yeah. And that's why when I go and work for the British Armed Forces, I'll just tell you a quick story. First time I ever did it, I'd never dealt with the military before, no military background at all. I got a phone call from a Rupert, an army officer. And he said, "Could you possibly come down and do one of your talks with our chaps?" I thought, okay, whatever. And he said, "Well, pay your fee." And I said, "Well, how much?" He told me. I said, "Look, forget it. It's not worth the paperwork in the nicest possible way. And I'll do it for, at the time, Queen and Country." He said, "Well, that's awfully decent of you, old chap." So I went down, and it was a whole new world. I had no idea. And it's all very formal and jolly good and super. So I did my talk. And he said, "Well, we will pay your petrol." And I said, "Out of pure interest, how many MOD forms would I have to fill out to get one tank of petrol?" He said, "Dozens. I'd imagine it'd probably take 2 days to do it all." I said, "Forget the petrol as well. I'll just pro bono the whole lot." And he said, "Well, we've got to do something for you, Stephen." I said, "No, it's been a privilege, pleasure. It really has opened my eyes." And he said, "Well, no, we've got to do something for you. Have you ever been in a tank?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Would you like to get in a tank?" And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Right, get a tank for Stephen." And 20 minutes later, I was in this Challenger 2 bouncing over Salisbury Plain thinking, this is fun. But the deal has always been the same, that I will get a ride or they'll show me something interesting, meet interesting people. But the thing is that when you're bouncing over Salisbury Plain in the Challenger 2, you're talking to the crew. And the crew were 18, 20, 22 years old, absolute commensurate professionals. Wow, your life in their hands. And you get chatting to them about their lives and how they came to be in the army and how they came to be a tank driver or whatever. And you just think, wow, this is an education for me. This is tuning into their world.
Didn't you also have one where you were taken up in a fighter jet?
Typhoon, yeah, that was fantastic. Typhoon. Chance in a lifetime.
How did you stumble into that one?
It was just, and it's serendipity. Most things in life are. I shouldn't say that, I'm a planner. But suddenly things come together and you've got to recognise when they all come together and just grab it. And done a lot of work pro bono for the RAF, and they said, again, we got a Typhoon going up this afternoon, there's a spare seat in the back. Do you fancy it? And of course I had to say, yes, please. Who wouldn't?
On a scale of 1 to visceral, how much does that frustrate your colleagues who feel like, oh, Stephen's off talking again. He's not interested in doing some of the academic rigour. He's off messing about doing his other stuff. And you're like, yeah, but isn't it astonishing that I then receive the funding and the support and people solicit my opinion? It's a very hard I have this, like, I don't want to feel like I'm walking away from my community, and I try to take my community with me. Yeah. But I'm speaking to people like you and getting invited to ridiculous places where I don't belong. And I always question the value that they perceive I'm going to add when I come and sit at this table. But I think to myself, you've got to have the audacity to step outside of your comfort zone.
Yes, you do.
You'll be astonished the yeses and the invites. And people are very, and I think about this with the emergency services, we're very siloed in our thinking at times. We're very romantic about the thing that we do. And we really struggle to think that someone like Stephen, or a military leader, or a leader of the NHS, or a business leader as well, could help us, because also we make some bad associations to like high performing sports teams. Now, it's great, and you can take on board a lot of that. But as an example, one of the most successful teams in sport is like the All Blacks. Their motto is "No dickheads." It's in their book, you know. Now, we couldn't write that on the wall in the fire and rescue service, but we'd like to. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult, isn't it? Especially when you're choosing people that are going to be part of that change. So we're going through a colossal amount of change in the services now. Take us through some of the work that we went through when we were at the conference around great examples of it, the difficult mental steps and concepts that people have to be willing to engage with in order to see successful change.
Wow, that's a big question. Where do you want to start on that one?
I'm gonna discipline myself to be the listener and the student and the eternal student that I always want to be. But I was always the kid with their hand up in class. So even when it was a class of 40 children, it was just like, well, that was a lovely one-to-one for you, wasn't it, Pete? But no one else had an opportunity to ask a question. Well, it's my podcast now, so it's just me, Stephen, so I can ask the questions I like. So,
okay. I'll interrupt and give you an answer. Okay, change and all that good stuff. We've done the flying model, and let's just cover that one because you've heard it, but others might not. So I say change takes you from where you are to where you want to be. And if I'm a good project manager, I'm like a pilot. And I always say to people, think about the last time you flew. You were stressed, we're back to stress. Before you even took off, you had to go to the airport full of stressed people behaving in an irrational way. We all get stressed by flight. We go through security and passport and everything else. We're going nowhere. And this is the trouble at the beginning of any change. People are saying, well, this is getting us nowhere. And you think, well, you just have to go through all this compliance stuff and all this stuff because that's the way it is. You can't get around the system. And eventually, you are shoveled into a thin metal tube with a crash resistance of a Coca-Cola can. You're filled up with about 22,500 litres of high explosive, which if it goes off, you ain't going to get out. You've got no safety equipment, you haven't got an ejector seat, you haven't got a parachute. The only thing they give you is a plastic whistle for attracting attention, which is going to melt in the heat anyway. You don't even get a seat belt, you get a lap belt, which is designed to hold your body in place to make identification easier. You then take the end of the runway on 3 wheels. It's a tricycle accelerated up to 140 miles an hour, possibly in the dark, in the rain, in the snow. And then the lunatic at the front pulls back on the stick, and now you are flying bomb. You accelerated through 200 miles an hour, 300 miles an hour, 400 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour, 550 miles an hour. You're taken up 10,000 meters above the surface of planet Earth, where the air is so thin that if you depressurize, you will not be able to blow your plastic whistle. If you fully understand the situation, you are now topping yourself up with some sort of medication. You look out the window, you're over the sea. What an insane thing to do in a plane because there's nowhere to land. And if you try to land, you're going to die. Look at the stats. British Airways always say, in the event of a forced water landing, ladies might be advised to take off their high-heeled shoes. A, it's sexist, and B, it's stupid. You're going to die in style. And then they throw you at another piece of concrete, God knows how they find it, deaccelerate you from 550 miles an hour down to 0. And then you say, oh, British Airways, we're 3 minutes late. And I always say to people, they kind of go, well, I hadn't thought of it like that. No, I'm sure you hadn't. Last time you flew, what was the name of the pilot? And they go, I don't know. Did you thank the pilot? No. Did you even check there was a pilot on board? No. So I said it's the same with projects. You've got a pilot on board, a project manager, change leader, call it what you will. If they're any good, you don't even know their name because they make it all look so easy because they understand that people are stressed. You know, if British Airways actually told you what they were going to do to your body over the next hour on this flight, you wouldn't get on board. Don't be silly.
Imagine if they audibly shouted out all the checks as they were doing them. Do you know what I mean?
actually had that.
And you had everyone, all the cabin team. I've got a loud, loud hit or whatever. They're all plugged into the audio. You're listening in.
We had a flight.
Because the things they'd be saying, they go, oh well, left flap's gone up 40%, but that'll do for today. And the driver goes, what's that button over there? Oh, it's okay. That's a new one. You don't need that. It's only for the... And you'd be hearing, what? What's that button? What?
You don't know what it is.
Can I just go up there? Hey, brother, you good? You new here? Or, as long as you've got a mustache, you're happy. The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
They had a great technology whereby they had a camera at the front of the plane and you could actually look at the landing live and they had to take them out because passengers were freaking out, because they could suddenly see where they were and what was happening. And once on a flight...
I think the tracking software as well was a way to dissipate stress, wasn't it? Like you can see I'm making progress. You can watch the plane fly, can't you, on the thing? I think they did that for a dissipation of stress. We're nearly there. Yeah. There's not too much longer to go and people can sort of work their way through that because it just stops people panicking. But like you say, if you heard it all, you'd never get on the damn plane.
No. And so then I flip it back and say, well, what you wanted was a boring flight. And they all went, no. And I said, no, you do. You don't want an exciting flight. Can you imagine the captain? Because normally the captain speaks like this, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard this British Airways flight. And you in the blue light service do the same thing. Someone with their arm hanging off, you say, don't worry, mate, it's going to be all right. All this sort of stuff.
80% confidence, 20% knowledge, I say with any first aid. Because you could have a doctorate in cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
Yep.
And you turn up and you're a bit, I'm not sure which bag is it in, Stephen's going to kill him.
Yeah.
But if you've just had a first aid at work day and you go in and go, sir, please sit down. I'm just going to put this respirator on you. Can you just get in the W position, please? Man, please step back. And they're like, oh my God, Stephen's going to save him. He has got this.
Absolutely. And so we talk about the project manager having a certain amount, not of arrogance, but sometimes confidence, hopefully not too much. And the way of speaking. And how do we do that as change managers? Well, look at the pilot analogy. Number one, you should be trained. Same with the fire service. You don't unleash people without training and say, well, you'll learn it on the job. Not smart. You're going to have a lot of crash planes, or in your case, crash fire engines or worse. And then they're retrained. And I'm sure you have that in the blue lights as well, whereby you've been trained, you've got the tick in the box, but hey, we all start to slide down the lazy curve, or we don't really need to do this curve. And every 6 months, pilots are chucked back in the simulator and shown that if they make mistakes, they're going to kill themselves and other people. And bad things can happen.
Tremendous amount of CPD. I always say that I give the analogy of the military when people speak about this, because some people moan about drills and exercise. We go, we're going to do hazardous materials today. When's the last hazmat job I went to, Pete? For God's sake. And I'm like, okay, the military, I think that I'll get these numbers wrong. Someone will Google it, but something like 17% of the military ever actually deploy to a conflict zone. Of that 17%, most of it is logistics and admin and information and all that sort of jazz, intelligence teams. Something like less than 3% are actually ever engaged in conflict. But they train every day and they train diligently, and we applaud them for it and we idolize them for it. And most of them are never in a 40-year career ever gonna do it.
Yep.
And I'm like, as a first responder, as a firefighter, as a paramedic, as a police officer, at least every week, if not every shift that you go on, you're probably going to do the thing.
Yep.
So be really bloody good at it.
Yep.
It's difficult.
It is. And again, blue light connection, military, flying, you've got to be trained, you've got to be retrained, checklists, boring as hell, but you arrive at the scene and you haven't got the right cutters or something, and it's like, oh, bloody hell, can someone nip back? And, everything has to be checked. Otherwise, when you need it all, it's all going to go terribly wrong. So the same on projects. People say, well, what's it like to be a project manager? And I use the flying analogy and say, like a pilot, if you find yourself in the cockpit having to make decisions in real time, the chances are you've messed up. I spoke to one pilot. He said, I'm never in the cockpit. I'm at least 10 nautical miles ahead of the plane, thinking about what could go wrong. And that
Captain Sully, great example you gave in the thing.
And I used him.
My God.
I used that at the conference. And yet, who did they try and blame? And for those that don't know the story, it's the landing on the Hudson. Real story, took off, A320, everything was going well. They ingested 14, 20 Canada geese into both engines. Statistically impossible, trillions, billions, quadrillions to one that could ever happen. No one ever thought it could happen. No risk register, no nothing. It happened. He was now on fire, fully fueled up, falling towards Manhattan. This is what we call a bad day. And Sully Sullenberger III, great name to have if you have an accident, pulled it off. And he did all the right things and landed this plane on the water, which, by the way, is impossible. People try it and it always breaks up and everyone dies. But he did it that day. And afterwards, they tried desperately to blame him for everything. And that's another problem with change, in that the whole system reacts against change sometimes and tries to blame individuals, especially if things go wrong.
I worry about this with first responders when we're having a lot of direct entry now. So direct entry, I think, are fantastic. I think these are people, like if you came in to lead a fire service, now I appreciate you're a white male and you're a good speaker and blah, blah, blah. So that'd carry you a certain element of authenticity and people would on board with you. Not so that should matter, but honestly, in the public's eye, and that would help. But people would go, what the bloody hell does Steve know about first responding and stuff like that? And there's a certain element of authenticity that comes with it, because when you use the Sully example, like, how did he solve that problem? Well, he was going through, yes, some of the checklist in the book, and you hear his co-pilot going through all the details, but realistically what he was doing was screaming through a Rolodex of information in his head and problem solving in scenarios and extrapolating down to where he thinks it's going to, and then his gut, or whatever that visceral thing is that we think, but that's just the mind is working so cognitively fast, you can't keep up to speed with what it's actually doing, and then something just arrives in the forefront of your cortex, and you go, this feels like the right thing to do. But when you say that in a debrief, and when Sully says, I did, and they go, oh, he was just winging it, if you excuse the pun. Yeah. And you're like, well, he wasn't bloody winging it. He had so many layers of authenticity.
Lovely expression he gave at an interview. They said, how did you do it? The same sort of thing. Were you thinking about it? And he said, no, I wasn't thinking about it. He said, every single day, I made a point of learning something from my experience of flying that day. And he said, I made those deposits over 40 years. And in those 204 seconds, I withdrew the lot. I just thought, all of that experience just suddenly went through his head, exactly as you said, and he managed to pull it off and stayed incredibly calm. But then they tried to blame him afterwards because, of course, if they can't blame the individual, then they have to blame the plane or the system, and that's going to cost them a lot of money.
And everyone else is petrified of if and what and how many of these planes are in the air. We like a scapegoat. It's nice to pin things on people.
Please.
But you said about the way that we communicate as well, and that's such a powerful element. Do you know who Martin Bromley is?
No.
Oh, I think you do, but you probably don't. Elaine Bromley, does that name ring any bells?
Rings bells.
So, crew resource management, what they do in the field of CRM.
Yeah.
Martin brought CRM into the NHS and into the first responder community. His wife, Elaine Bromley, have you read a book called Black Box Thinking?
Yes.
By Matthew Syed?
Yeah.
So Martin and Elaine's story is the beginning of Black Box Thinking. And when we had Martin on the podcast, I went down to his home, and he's a pilot, flies the big Airbuses and all this sort of stuff. And he tells the story of his wife. I'll give a quick recap for people. She went in for ordinary surgery on something to do with her breathing. I don't think it was snoring, but she had some sort of breathing difficulty. Just a one-day surgery. Him and his daughters, when I dropped her off in the morning, said, let's go and get some lunch for mummy, and they went to Sainsbury's and bought some stuff. And then at the end of the day, they didn't get the outcome that they thought the mummy would be coming home, because they spent a long time trying to intubate her. They put her under sedation and they couldn't get a tube in to intubate her, and she was losing a lot of oxygen, losing her SpO2, and the nurses in the operating theatre had the tracheotomy kit available, and they were trying to insist to the doctors that they should just abandon the face and go in through her trach, because that's a recognised method if things aren't going well. But what the doctors did was keep bringing more and more doctors into the room and soliciting more ideas, and everyone else had another go, and she went something like 13 minutes or something, I'll get the number wrong, without oxygen, and she suffered tremendous brain damage. She was on life support for another 5 or 6 days, and then Martin and the family had to decide that unfortunately she wasn't going to make it, and switched her off. And he asked for an investigation, not to get anybody fired or anything like that, but he's used to aviation, where Steve did a hiccup during landing, and we're going to look into it, and we're going to run everything, and we're going to listen to the black box, and we're going to get all the data, and we're going to take the plane apart. And nobody actually died. But in the NHS, or in the health service in general, people will die and will just go, it was a complicated thing, the human body is very complex and there's many varying blah, 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 blah. He called for an investigation. One was taken out. No one, I believe, was sacked or anything like that. But they learnt a great deal from him, and they went around the world talking about CRM. And it's the way that they communicate. And I wanted to try and throw that template onto our conversation at this moment to ask around how leaders, because it's relevant to Sully, and when you hear the black box and you hear the way that they're communicating there, it's calm, it's considered, it's pragmatic, it's not filled with emotion. There's something about the way that we talk to each other during these stressful moments of change, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely, and staying calm. Well, the military the same. I'd say the same in the civilian world. No matter. I'll give you a story. I worked offshore, as you know, many years ago, and we had a level 4 shutdown, which is the whole platform basically commits suicide, vents everything, makes it safe, but there's complete silence, and then, panic. Everyone started running around. What the hell's happened? Why is the platform shut down? And I remember this voice over the tannoy saying, stop, and Texan, a laid-back Texan, he was the OIM, Offshore Installation Manager, God. And we all kind of stopped and stared at the tannoy, as you do. And he said, look around you, ladies and gentlemen. Is anyone dead? If you can see if anyone is dead, contact me in the control room immediately. And he could hear him breathing. And about 10 seconds later, he said, my phone ain't ringing. Hey, my day's getting better. Look around you again. Is anyone seriously injured? And I'm talking about legs or arms hanging off torsos. Because if so, we can get a medical team down to them immediately. Contact me in the control room. 10 seconds of breathing. We were kind of looking around. And he said, hey, my day is really brightening up. He said, no one dead, no one seriously injured. Okay, has anyone even hurt their little pinky or something? We can get them up to the medical place and pop a little plaster on them. Still ain't ringing. So no one's dead, no one's injured, no one's kind of injured in any way. We've had a level 4 shutdown, people. Let's just work the problem. Bing bong. And I still remember this. Just starts with stop. Calm down. There's no one dead. Now, in blue light, it may well be, but in industry, largely people are not dying. It's all about staying calm on a project and saying, look, is anyone dead? No. Good. So we're going to go over budget, or we might be a bit late. Let's work on that. And we'll probably find a solution if we calm down.
Some people get rewarded for catastrophizing, though, don't they? That is the problem. The screamer. As always gets it, and they get rewarded because I've got some data, Stephen. We're losing £1,000 a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And those people, again, they are kind of addicted to crisis. They enjoy crisis. I was working with a hospital a few years ago, and we were trying to get a new system in whereby they could actually connect into the incoming ambulances, and it's like air traffic control. It worked an absolute treat, technically, but the implementation went terribly wrong, because the porters didn't like being tracked. They didn't want the hospital to know where they were, so we had to deal with that one. They were taking trackers off beds and chucking them out the windows and that sort of stuff. We had to explain that wasn't, again, not discipline, but just buying them into the system. And then we discovered there were some people in the hospital who just enjoyed rushing around the hospital saying, crisis, crisis, there's an incoming ambulance. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And suddenly, of course, they didn't have a job to do because the whole system was running smoothly. And they were then disrupting the system. And I remember sitting down with one of them and saying, why are you doing this? And she said, well, I thought I was doing a really good job and now you stopped me doing my job. It must be a bad thing. And it was, we haven't got into your mind. Why are we doing all this? We're not trying to say you're doing a bad job. It's just that your job hopefully won't be as required in terms of crisis, but we can find other things for you to do. But she was addicted. I'm sure she was addicted to this crisis.
Oh, absolutely. That adrenaline is lovely. A lot of people like to descend it. It's a thrill seeker, isn't it? It's our risk appetite.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Some people love going into that.
Again, the spectrum. We need people who do that sometimes, but it's situational. Everything's situational in life.
Yeah. But for a lot of people, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame as well.
No.
And you do need, I say this with commanders in the fire service, like as an incident commander, it sounds like a weird thing to say, but I says, always leave your gloves in your pocket. Because I should be back here looking at the wider context. Okay, I'm at a road traffic collision. Okay, the highways agency, the media, inbound traffic, cordons. Is anyone about to plow through the scene and kill everyone? You know, but if I'm so in there, blinkered on it, because I think I'm the expert. Cool, I'm the best firefighter on the scene. I'm bloody in charge, and I'm the long screwdriver. I'm leaning in and I'm getting my head in the back of the vehicle and going, know what you need to do to cut this C-post because you're doing it wrong, because I can see from back there the metal's tearing. You know, if I did get hit by a lorry 3 lanes back, that person would probably still be absolutely fine getting that person out the car. Just because they're not doing it. This is the thing, isn't it? They're not doing it how you would do it, Stephen. Okay, we want the destination. You know, I don't really care the how, but the why we're doing it is what we all need to agree on. The what and the how is very flexible, isn't it? How you go about change. But sometimes we can be so rigid in we lose a bit of that neuroplasticity as we get a bit older, and we see ourselves as a consummate professional. Well, Stephen, I'm a 30-year firefighter. You know, this is the way it's done, and we really struggle with taking on different approaches, which again I suppose is a massive aspect of change, is because if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, I forget who it was, but that's the definition of insanity.
That's Einstein, and you're absolutely right.
Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next up, and widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection, this is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
I'll go back one and then we'll go forward one. Again, change. There's a lovely quote from a philosopher writer called George Bernard Shaw, who was quite controversial in his time, Victorian. And he said, when you think about it, a reasonable person, when they come into a situation, will try and fit in with the situation, because that's what reasonable people do. An unreasonable person will come in and say, well, this situation is not acceptable and we've got to change it. So therefore, perhaps all change depends on unreasonable people. Now, you see your eyebrows go up, because when I quote that, people get very twitchy with me. And it's like, hang on, because we're all meant to be nice to each other. Well, let's discuss that quote, because if you're a change agent, you are going to upset people.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It is a massive ouch for people, especially if the way that we're doing things, like you say, rewards and sustains certain people's career. Well, my job is dealing with the homeless crisis. If that problem goes away, what am I going to do after this?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? If I'm the flexi crew that covers all of the, you know, it costs $100,000 a year to pay for all of our flexible crew or something like that. But if we fix the crewing problem, through doing a different shift model, or, everyone starts, there's different services start at different times. Might not be a surprise to the public, but I think everyone thinks we all start shift at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't. London starts 2 hours later because they go, well, why would we send everybody in at the same time as the public are trying to get into work? It's very stressful for our colleagues. Some of them would prefer to work shorter days, longer nights, whatever it is. As long as we're all, again, you can please some of the people some of the time, all of the people none of the time, but as long as we can get the majority on board, why shouldn't we start at this time? I always say with the crew, like when we start a 12-hour day, there's some non-negotiables here, folks. We have to do a few of these things during the day, but when we do them, and how we do them to an extent, is largely up to us. When do you want to have lunch? When do you want to drill? What do you want to? What risks do we want to go and visit this afternoon? And it's creating an illusion of choice, which is sounds like a very manipulative manner. But like, if we say, Stephen, we're going north. Now, would you like to go on the M1 or the M6? You know what I mean? Rather than me being terribly prescriptive about the way in which we change, it's all about the leader speaking into the future and constantly saying the destination, constantly pointing at the star over the hill or whatever it is, isn't it? Rather than being so prescriptive about, I think that's what people really struggle with, is the way in which people have change imposed upon them, rather than this is the destination.
You've probably heard there's a big battle. I always find a bit of a joke. Things like the Association of Project Managers and all that good stuff, PMI, Project Management Institute, they discovered something called Agile about 20 years ago. And I laughed because I thought, what's new here? And it's exactly what you just discussed. Instead of saying, we are going to go on the M1, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, it's more, well, there's different routes. Let's try them and see how it goes. And it's not sloppy, it's just a different way of thinking. And sometimes you can't be absolute about the way you're going to go forward. And so they then turned into a religious war virtually between the zealots who wanted what they call waterfall, we do it this way and that's the process and you can't change it. And then the agile zealots who were saying, no, life's up for grabs and the rest of it. And it was like, you've got to be on one side of it. And I always say, no, it's just a continuum and it's situational. Sometimes I want waterfall. I had a house built recently in 2 days by the Germans. I did not want agile. I wanted them to arrive at a prescribed time with all the right kit, with all the right people, and they'd gone through endless checklists, and they did, and it was beautifully German, it was fantastic, and in 48 hours they put the whole house up, and there wasn't a single missing nut, bolt or washer. Having said that, when I was designing the house, the last thing I wanted was some German saying, this is how your house will be. I wanted agile. Let's explore this, 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, whatever. And so, again, situational. And one company I went into the other day, they said, we don't believe in waterfall and we don't believe in agile. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. What have you come up with? And he said, we're right in the middle. I said, okay. What's that then? He said, it's wagile. You think, oh, please, here we go.
Lovely.
So now you've got 3 religions.
Was it on the wall behind you? Call it whatever you want. I don't care what you want to call it. It's okay.
And it's just a state of mind. As you said, it's what's the overall objective? Why are we all here? What are we trying to achieve? Taking that step back. That's...
I think it's fascinating, like you say, the level of control that we try and assert over things. I always use the analogy of national operational guidance, which is something that the vast majority of the UK Fire and Rescue Service adhere to. But I always say to my team, what's it called? It's guidance. Okay, it's guidance. Okay?
Yeah, not prescriptive.
Not prescriptive.
Yep.
I always say leaders impose values. They don't impose rules. And rules are for the interpretation of wise men and the obedience of fools, which is very provocative when I tell that to people who manage me.
I know. I used it many times. And also the Dalai Lama, he said, always know the rules. Then you'll know how to get around them.
Yeah. There you go. People use Dalai Lama as a great example, but Nelson Mandela was another one. They always say, oh, tell me about a great leader. They go, Nelson Mandela. Okay, did Nelson Mandela have a 20-point plan?
No.
Or did he have a vision? He had a vision and a dream. That was his speech, wasn't it? You know, he had a dream and he articulated a destination. The how we get there was very foggy and several paths and avenues that it took that I'm sure he could never have envisaged, but he had embodied that change in his followership in the world, largely. And that's ultimately how we made our way there.
My favourite quote of Nelson Mandela, and it does my head in, I've done it to several of my MBA students who are kind of floundering in terms of, am I allowed to build this business? A lot of people have kind of things in their head that they, imposter syndrome. And Nelson Mandela once said to someone, "What right have you got not to be great?" And that, I can see the reaction on your face. That's a really hard one.
Well, I've got something written on my bag that I take to work every day, and it says, "Less impressed, more involved."
Yep.
And I think about that with the podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. When I hear great speakers and great podcasters and all this sort of jazz, and I think, stop being marveled by Stephen and the way he speaks. Get involved. Swallow your humility and just begin. Because we're all rubbish to start with. Know what what is the old one I've got written on one of my walls in the other study is you're not great when you start, but you have to start in order to be great. It's something to that effect. And stop being so impressed and bamboozled by everybody else, because it's quite paralyzing.
Yeah, it is.
Stephen was a walking bin fire when he first started lecturing, and the first talk he gave was an absolute shambles.
You were there, obviously.
They wouldn't have paid his coffee, let alone his bloody petrol in his airfare and taking him around in a tank.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's just failed more times than I have.
Oh, yeah. You are looking at a failure, professional failure. My God, I've had to crawl out of projects, wondering what the hell my worth to the human species was. But again, we're talking about the spectrum. I happen to like endings. That's something else that you mentioned earlier. I don't really mind it if the project is so successful it ends early and I get fired. Now, a lot of people, that's like anathema. I find it with civil service. It's like, what do you mean? You're going to get fired if you are more successful? Well, if you finish the project earlier, we don't need you anymore. Take it as a compliment. But it's like, what happens then? What happens then is hopefully you get another project and more excitement. But I understand, again, I'm at that end of the spectrum. I enjoy that. A lot of people, that's hell. And you therefore have to protect them from this idea that projects may actually come to an end. You have to hand them over.
We love complexity, don't we? We get rewarded for complexity.
Right. Okay, stop right there, Pete. Okay, there are 3 types of complexity.
Take the wheel.
I work with some very clever academics. I'm not an academic. I never have been. I'm a teacher. But they came up with a brilliant. They had 42 different types of complexity, and they said, "Is this useful to a practitioner?" I said, "No. You're up to your whatever in alligators, and someone says, here's 42 more." No. And they said, "Well, how many will be useful as a model?" I said, 3 maximum. Most people can juggle 3 balls, but no more. And they said, "Well, we have to reduce the 42 down to 3. And I said, "Yeah." And they did it because they're really clever people. And the 3 types of complexity are mini lecture, 180 seconds, no more. There are 3 types of complexity. Lots of papers on this, by the way. It's been adopted as a worldwide standard, but it sounds simple. It took a lot of research. So boil it down, 3 types of complexity. First one is structural complexity, which is how many people are involved, what do we need to do, what are the methodologies and processes, and what are the rules we have to obey, blah, 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 blah. That one is relatively straightforward. Most of us can be trained to do that one. We've got tools and techniques to define scope and roles of responsibility, racing matrix, all that sort of stuff. That one, not knocking in any way, is still hard. The second one is emergent complexity. That's how much the world is changing around you as you're trying to do the change. So things like COVID arrives, or Ukraine gets invaded. It wasn't on your risk register. Would have been pointless if it was anyway, because it's just happened. There's nothing you can do about it. But you are now going to be affected by it, and so therefore your change is going to be affected by the change. So Trump opening his mouth, he was just what we call an emergent complexity generator. And then the third one is what we call socio-political complexity. And that one is all about the unspoken, the EQ, emotional quotient, the politics, the backstabbing, the insecurities. And the research indicates that of those 3, 80% of all project failures can be attributed to socio-political problems. People not addressing that level of complexity. But they went back to the people who actually were involved in this major academic study and said, well, that's interesting. So 80% of your problems come from socio-political. Where do you spend 80% of your time? And the answer came back, structural. We have to worry about the process, look at the forms you have to fill out. And it's such an obvious thing when you see it on a pie chart, which is, well, that's why your projects are going wrong, because you don't worry so much.
It's the Pareto principle, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
20% of the things you have in your bucket create 80% of your problems. And we do this in the merchant services. We focus so much on the operational. Look, we're not amazing. We're pretty bloody good at that.
Yes.
The stuff we suffer with, and we see it in all of the newspapers now, we suffer with culture, we suffer with change, these are the big things that we struggle with. And you see it with science, when you talk about that socio-political element as well, because they say science and culture progresses one funeral at a time.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's only when Stephen dies, because he's the biggest speaker around change and complexity, when he eventually goes or decides to go and live in his lovely new home with his partner and his children, then someone else can step in and their thing will be the next big thing.
Yeah.
And we struggle with that, with change tremendously. That socio-political element is just massive. But then, like you say, you do have the elements like the financials, like you can put together a massive change planning thing, but the budget for next year's fire and rescue service comes out and you've got to cut 17 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solve.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And sometimes you can't achieve the big change. I think that's a massive one, isn't it? Your sphere of influence and your sphere of control when we talk about change. Like when you sit around a watch table, people want to talk about the government and the funding and all that sort of jazz. And I'm like, a very small percentage of that is in your sphere of influence. Yeah, we could talk about Ukraine and we could talk about the chief fire officer and the car he's not supposed to have or all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What the bloody hell has that got to do with you, and what can you do about it? If you shrunk things down to your sphere of influence, sphere of control, like people will catastrophize about the world, but their own personal health and their own personal finances are in disarray. And those things are within their sphere of control to change. But sometimes you have got to shrink that down. I forget, I think it's an old religious fable where someone's like, I want to change the world. And God's like, change yourself.
Yeah.
And the world will change.
Absolutely.
How do you help, if there's any thread you can pull from that waffle, shrinking things into people's sphere of influence and control? Because this might be tactically deployable and useful for people, because we're all experiencing change, but change on a personal level can ripple out, can't it?
Yeah. And you mentioned the word fog earlier. I'm going to give you another model. Here's another model for you. Okay, I'm an academic, can't help it. There are 4 types of change project. Bear with me on this one. One is what we call painted by numbers. And this is where everyone knows what they're doing and how to do it. And that's where senior management want everyone to be. But it's an illusion, because very seldom do any change projects start like that. They start somewhere else, and I'll describe those in a second. But this idea that everyone should be absolutely on the ball all the time and knowing what they're doing, it looks good on the red tops and the rest of it, and reports. But really, it's an endpoint if you're lucky. So the other 3 places are, fog. You mentioned fogs. This is where you don't know what you're doing and you haven't got a clue how to do it anyway. And it's like floundering around in a fog. You just, what are we all meant to be doing? I don't know. Where are we meant to be going? I don't know. How are we going to do it? I don't know. Well, this isn't a change project. Yes, it is. We're here. We have to get on with it. But I've got no angles on this. Well, there you go. Nor have I. What's your advice? I haven't got any. And people hate it and scream, this isn't a change project. This is how a lot of change projects start. The fire service should be better. Brilliant. Red tops. Top man, person commits to major change. Good. How are we going to be better? I don't know. How are you going to measure better? I don't know. We just have to do it. By when? I don't know. How much money we got to do it? I don't know. So it's a fog project. Now, fog projects are okay in that you're walking in a mountain in the fog. Don't run. You're going to go straight off the edge. So you have to try and find a path. And you have to do it collectively. And you have to try and find edges. Don't go over to the right. There's a precipice. I can feel it with my foot. Pass that down the line. So progress is very slow. But eventually you'll find something that looks like a path going in the right direction. You don't know if it's the right one, but at least everyone is now kind of feeling that they are going forward. Then you can move from there into one of 2 before you get to the painting by numbers. One is actually called, it's called making a movie. Now, the guy that came up with this, Eddie Obeng, brilliant guy, he said he'd come back from Hollywood, and he said everyone in Hollywood knows how to make movies. That's not an issue. They just don't know what to make. And so they're waiting for someone to come along with a script. And he said the thing that got me was the biggest single risk on any movie is the nomination of one individual. Do you know who that is? Guess. The
Director?
Director. You got in one. Well done. And that's a person who has a vision. They read the script and say, I can see this in my head. It's going to be brilliant. And, And
builders. My dad was a builder for 40 years. You've got to see it before it's there, haven't you?
Yeah,
You've got to see it. When he walks past and my dad, and you'll have had it. You go, there is the 3-story house.
Yeah.
There is the Colosseum.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
No.
You can see it.
You can't prove it. You can't prove it to be a success. So that particular one, from fog going towards painting by numbers, is what we call this making a movie. And you need a director. And someone who can't prove anything they're going to say, most people say it's bullshit. But if they do it right, it's magnificent. If they do it wrong, we'll all point the finger and say, what an idiot. Why were we stupid enough to fire them, whatever. So that's a very high risk, and it depends a lot on charisma and the rest of it. The other route is equally painful for senior management, which is basically quest, which is let's try something. Is it going to work? I haven't got a clue. Well, why are we trying it? Because we have no other options. Well, what else are we going to try? How about this one and this one? Which one's the right one? I don't know. Well, this could be expensive. Yeah, probably. Well, can you guarantee this will work? No. Well, this is unprofessional. No, it's not. Because we're on a quest. We're trying to find a way through all of this stuff. And one day we will. And perhaps we might find 3 paths going down that mountain, but we don't know which one's the right one. So we'll send some people down one path and say, come back and report. Let us know. And send other people down. And you can find out where the dead ends are. And hopefully we'll find one that works. And once we've got that one path, then we can do it painted by numbers. Everyone knows what they're doing. They know where they're going. They know how to do it. That's brilliant. So it's taking this mess of change and going in one of 2 directions. One, you rely very much on an individual with a vision. Huge risk. Nowadays we don't like it. And then the other one is let's fast fail. And the person who's the expert on fast failure, love him or loathe him, and I do an equal measure, is Elon Musk. And he just tries stuff, fast failure. We see it at the moment. Are you aware of what's happened upstairs at the moment? It's a lovely blue light problem. Boeing and Elon Musk were asked to get people up to the International Space Station because the only people that could do it from 2012 were the Russians. Very embarrassing.
SpaceX is Elon,
so,
isn't it? Yeah.
SpaceX, Elon. And so Boeing said we can do it for $4.5 billion. SpaceX, Elon said we can do it for half. Typically Elon, bullshit. And they were then put in straight competition against each other. Boeing went very much for the Boeing way of doing things, very orderly, but lots of committee meetings, lots of process. And as a result of 4 years late, SpaceX got up 4 years before Boeing.
Speed kills.
Speed kills. And it's interesting because everyone thought that Elon was going to kill people. He hasn't. He's got, I think, 10 crews up there, perfectly safe. But at the moment, Boeing, 4 weeks ago, finally managed to get 2 astronauts up on their vehicle 4 years late, up to the ISS, and then it broke down. And they are now still in space. These 2 people, they were meant to come back within 10 days. They're still
Is Elon going to rescue them for them?
Options. Going board, can you imagine this one? Option 1, we bring them back in a dangerous spacecraft and they might die. Option 2, we ask the Russians to bring them back. Option 3, we ask our greatest competitor, who's made absolute global fools of us, to bring them home. And that's what's going on at the moment above our heads. Can you imagine that as a call out?
If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drill Book, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to JESIP, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show. Difficult analogy for leaders though, isn't it? Because I hate you, Stephen, but you get stuff done.
Yeah. Oh, I've had that one.
And I think this doesn't work sometimes when we compare ourselves to entrepreneurs like Elon Musk or
I hate it, man.
Virgin.
Yeah,
Virgin. Who's
Richard Branson? I used to work for him.
Richard Branson. I'm Richard. Absolutely incredible individual. He's a disruptor.
He's a
disruptor.
Absolutely.
And they have the liberty of autonomy, and they can put all of the eggs in that basket.
And they do.
And that sometimes, like I gave the comparison when we compare ourselves to high-performing sports teams and stuff like that.
Yep.
Some people, that we want to use and we want to take some of that, but we don't have the liberty sometimes to just say, I'm going to do whatever. Because again, the fire service, NHS, police, whoever, we're ran by the government. We have people to answer to. Elon, these people have no one to answer to. And that's a beautiful freedom. But they're also they're willing to set fire to their own life.
Yes.
To achieve the result. But you said something about that fog. And it really is such a useful analogy, I think, when we solicit opinions or feedback from people such as yourself. There was a great story. Have you heard the one with the manager in the hot air balloon?
Oh, yes, I know that one. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the manager in the hot air balloon. So he's in a hot air balloon and he's trying to get to his friend. He's on an appointment. I don't know why he chose a hot air balloon to get there. But I'll probably ruin this. You'll correct me as I go. But he's flying here. He's flying there. He's absolutely lost in this cloud. And he keeps flying over a man that's out there walking his dog in the middle of a field. And he's changing direction. He's changing everything. He's burning lots of fuel going left and right. And he shouts down, "Hey, you there. Where am I?" And the guy goes, "Well, I'll give you your longitude and latitude. You're 7 degrees here, you're 9 degrees there." And he goes, no, but where am I? And then he tells him his orientation in the hemisphere and all this sort of stuff. And he says, "But I'm trying to get to my friend. You must be an engineer. You must be an academic. None of this is useful information for me." And he says, "Well, what's the problem?" He says, "Well, I'm trying to get to my friend. I'm running late. I've nearly used all my fuel up, and I keep having to change direction." He says, "Oh, so you're lost. You don't know where you're going. You've made promises to people that you're going to let down, and it's my fault. You must be a manager." And I just think,
that's true.
It's so difficult for people like that because they want answers and they want support, but they're not entirely sure. And you'll have this all the time, we want change, Stephen. Okay, what does that look like?
Yep.
What does this mean? Do you know what I mean? I always used to have it with clients where they're like, "Oh, Pete, I want to lose weight," and I'm like, "Okay, lose a pound, get rid. Go away." What you mean? So if you lost 3 stone but you looked exactly the same, would you be happy? And they're like, "No, Pete. I mean, I want to look better." And okay. So how much do you weigh? I weigh 13 stone. Okay, I weigh 18 stone. Am I fitter and healthier than you? Yeah. So your weight is actually just your relationship to the earth. And this is where if you make the metric the goal, sometimes it ceases to be a useful metric, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay. If we're making saving money the goal, well, actually, what did you want to do? I wanted to make the service more efficient. Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you just said you wanted to save money.
Yeah.
I thought you just said you wanted to lose weight.
Yeah.
But you've lost 3 stone and you hate the way you look.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Helping people understand the flexibility is all part of the process. Help us zoom back down into the tactical side of it. When people are having these relationships, when people are communicating this change, what are some deployable things that you've seen done well? And I know I may be asking you to repeat yourself, but when people complexify with all of these really fantastic models, it's very impressive, and that verbal masturbation is very useful for people. We love it. That's why we love listening to TED Talks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we said before, when people send academic papers off to their colleagues and say, "Read this, there's a gem in there."
Pretty hard to read.
I'm not sure what the hell I'm supposed to do with this, Stephen.
Yeah.
Talk to me about taking people with you, because Elon Musk and Richard Branson, I'm sure, littered in their past, there's a lot of people that hate them.
Yep.
And we gave Nelson Mandela as an example. Man's a terrorist.
Yeah.
Man is a terrorist in many people's eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. But they achieved change, and they had to be willing to sacrifice some of their personal relationships to get there. But in our sector, you've got to take people with you. Otherwise, you're just a romantic on a walk. No one's coming with you.
That's a nice expression as well. I like that one. Okay, it's all about, again, going back to the important one, the socio-political complexity, the nasty one. And a part of that is stakeholder engagement, which is what you're talking about. And what I had to learn many years ago, because I'm originally an engineer. Engineers, X plus Y equals Z. The answer is Z, okay? And someone says, "No, it isn't." You just say, "Okay, I'll go through the maths again." And eventually they go, "Oh, yeah, you're not Z." Now, when I became a manager, I was trying this. Well, we're just going to do this because it's logical, and people will go off and do exactly the opposite. And you think, what the hell are you doing? But that's management, because people are socio-politically complex, because they have different views on the project and different views on you. And if they don't like you, they ain't going to follow you. So stakeholder engagement, we talk about the barometer at the top. Okay, I love you. I love your project. I'd like to have your babies. Brilliant. Oh, fantastic person to have on the project.
I'll follow you off the cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go into war with you into the valley of the 300.
And funny enough, you don't want those people on your project because they're a pain in the backside. They're zealots and they piss everyone else off. So you have to kind of get the zealots off the job somehow, or send them off to do another task. Next level down, I get on with you. I like your plan. I like your project. You have my support. It's what we call approval. Next level down, I'm not sure about you, I'm not sure about your project, but my boss has told me that I have to contribute. Next one down, I don't really like you, and I whatever this, am I bothered? I'm up to here with work, and you talk change management. Please go away. Okay, and then we move into the hey, I really dislike you, and I dislike your project, and I will obstruct you. No, I can't make the meeting next week. Sorry. Next level down, even worse. I hate you, and I hate your project. I will be at that meeting, and I will disrupt it. And the next level down, even worse. Oh, love you, love your project. And I'll turn up to all the meetings, and I'll give the whole lot to the red tops, and that'll be the end of you. So these are people who are basically,
Stephen, that hurts. You're echoing things of my past. Please don't make this into a therapy session.
Now,
carry on.
The good bit that I'm sure you found out this therapy is that the vast majority of people at the beginning of a change are actually in the middle. They're in the, do I have to get involved? Not another damn change program. I'm sick of these things. And so actually that's to your advantage. The majority don't give a stuff about you and don't give a stuff about the project. And people say, no, that's bad. No, that's good. Because what you can now do is just gently, and I mean gently, start to cajole them upwards. And it's not latched, by the way. And you're trying to get this critical mass up. And you don't want them all as zealots. That's fatal. You want them to gently move up. And the best way I ever had it proven to me was I was out in Texas. I was working in the oil business. We did a ranch day. Goddamn, be a cowboy, all this bullshit. Anyway, we had to get a whole bunch of cows across a river. And this guy who was kind of looking after us, we knew nothing. How are you going to get the cows across the river? And we had guns, typical Texas. We said, well, we just fire off guns. He said, no, you do that. Your steers are going to be all over that goddamn Texas. Take us 3 weeks to sort them all out again. And they'll be freaked out for the rest of their lives. So sudden change, not a good idea, very risky. And we thought, oh, God, how do you do it? And eventually he said, I'll show you how to do it. So he just wandered very gently up to these cows. There was no whooping or howling. And he picked the most compliant cow. He got some grass in his hand, and he just stuffed it under the cow's nose and just started walking into the river. And the cow kind of looked at him and thought, well, he's not drowning. He has got grass. And you see the rest of the cows thinking, I wouldn't do that, bloody idiot. And he took the first cow across, and there was grass on the other side, and the thing started feeding. And you see the other cows thinking, well, it didn't die, and it's eating. Not so bad then. And then he came back and got another 2. And they went across. And you can see some of the cows were thinking, okay, I might join in. Other cows, I'm not bloody joining in this one. And eventually he got about, it took time, he got about 60-70% of the cows across this damn river. And they're all happily eating grass. And then you were down to the 30% who were not going to cross this bloody river. And then there was a moment, you could see the cows looking at each other, thinking, most of the herds over there, they seem happy, and they just went. And the final, they went in one go.
Because down their hierarchy, I'm part of the group.
Yeah. And so
I'm part of the group. Now I'm out. Now I'm pushed out.
Yeah.
Why am I pushed out? That's my bloody group. Why have you taken all of my group over there? And now I'm the left one out?
That's right.
No.
Yeah.
That's my group, Stephen.
That's right.
You know what? Of course I'm on board. In fact, I agree with the idea.
Absolutely. It was my idea from the start. Leadership from behind.
Yeah, I remember telling Stephen about this 3 years ago. We all said it was better over the other side of the river. I'm glad Stephen did that. He did come and thank me on the side. And you know what? Give it to them. Give it to them. Of course it was his idea. Of course it was his idea. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next herd of the river.
Yeah. And so
that's it, isn't it?
Stakeholders, just move them gently. Don't frighten them. And eventually they'll come round.
You've seen the one with the wind and the sun and the man with the jacket.
Go on.
Man with the jacket walking down the seaside, and the sun and the wind are like, I tell you what, let's play a game. The wind says, I'll bet I can get him to take his jacket off before you can. You go, okay, you go first then. The wind starts to crank it up, starts to blow hard at him, starts throwing some rain in, and he's just grabbing onto his jacket, and he actually zips it up, and then he puts a bloody hat on to make it worse, and he's going force gale 26, whatever it is, and he says, it's ridiculous. I think it's actually sewn to the man's skin. It's not actually going to come off. And the sun goes, okay, no dramas. Mind if I have a little go? And then he just slowly warms the man up and lets him continue to walk, and 1 degree at a time. And lo and behold, 5 minutes later, takes the jacket off. It wasn't sewn to the skin. Yeah. He just coerced him, did it at his pace. Yeah. Because we do want change to happen quick. And the problem is you can see the cliff and you're like, we do need to turn around very quickly, or at least reduce our speed dramatically, because the financial quarter is coming to a close. And this nicey grass in the hand bullshit that you're doing, Stephen, doesn't seem to be, well, I've got 40% of the cows over the river. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Have patience with the process, because if you come in and start firing guns off, you'll be right, because it will fail. And that will perpetuate your belief that Stephen's thing. And that's that change fatigue, isn't it?
It is.
We've given it 3 months. Yep. Guys, come on. I've got these cultural architects on board. Is it, I'm going to get it wrong. It's not Ishikawa, it's something like that. But finding people in the organisation and creating that spider web of connection of people in different teams, in different places, soliciting their opinion, making them feel heard and listened to. Yes. And they go back and go, yeah, bloody hell, I met that Stephen actually. We had a coffee with him the other day.
Yes. And you don't in the end have to persuade anyone. It's the people who've already been persuaded that then influence far greater in terms of effect than you ever could. So yes, get them on board, get the ambassadors.
Wrap us up with some closing points. Is there anything we've skipped past there, or pertinent things that you would love to leave in the mind of our listener before we close?
Okay, I think I'd summarise it. People don't like change. They don't want change. They want the benefits of change. Change is a journey like a flight. You need pilots. You need pilots who are going to make it look easy and calm, because people don't like to be panicked in the middle of change. Many ways of getting there. It's never going to be, I know everything I'm doing and everyone else around me supports me and here's the methodology. Happy days if you ever get there, but my career, probably 10% of it's been in those happy lands. Most of the time I've spent either in fogs, haven't got a clue what I'm doing or how I'm going to do it, move slowly, communicate well, find a path, try it out. Then you've got 2 ways of going. You can either say, well, there's 3 paths, let's just explore each and then we'll go with one. Or you have a visionary who says, right, it's that path. I've got a gut feeling. I've been here before. I can't prove it. It's that one. Let's go. And people trust them. And if it's wrong, you all go off a cliff. But if it's right, you save an awful lot of time. And then you arrive in the happy lands of, we all know what we're doing. We all know how to do it. But projects are very much change projects, a journey, a very painful journey for most people. It's all about getting the people involved, because, the structural side of the project you can deal with. The change side, well, especially in the blue light industry, you're damn good at that. You love change. In fact, you generate it if you're not careful. And then you've got the socio-political, and that's the one that tends to catch people out. And we all say, it's all about the people. Yeah, it's about the stakeholders, the politics. And if it's stakeholders, just cajole them gently around, use ambassadors. It's not, this is right, you must do it. Don't frighten them and think long term. There we are. That's the whole podcast for you in 90 seconds.
Stephen, that's wonderful. For people that want to know more, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn below this. There's a series of academic papers that people can filter off from there. And information available.
Don't read the academic papers, they're really boring. But if you put the one for the Financial Times about flying on, and it's copyright free, so go for it.
Beautiful. We'll stick that link in there, my friend. Thanks so much for your time today, brother. Send my love to your family and for everyone that's given you to us for this hour and a half. I really do appreciate it.
And likewise, Pete, carry on with this. This is good work. Good man.
Thank you, my friend. Take care. The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our drive and purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.